it's me again, Josie. So last time we were talking about the beginning of I Ching, and in this episode we're going to introduce what is Yin and what is Yang, the very important concept in I Ching. So stay tuned. So what is Yin, what is Yang? Yin and Yang, they're one of the most important Chinese concepts that are getting more and more popular in the Western world. We use it in our daily life and use them to describe the things which has the opposite features, like black and white. However, do we use them in the right way? I Ching looks like very complicated, but actually it only contains two symbols, Yin and Yang, and we've already discussed before that Yin and Yang are the two basic fundamental elements that constitute the whole universe. So does Yin and Yang means black and white, or it just represents the two opposite features? So let's do a little test first. Please guess the following concept with Yin and Yang. The first one, whether the sunny day represents Yang. Sure, because the sun is shining and you feel warm and open and you want to go outside and enjoy the nature. So whether the raining days could be considered as Yin? Definitely, because you feel cold, you feel shrinking, and you want to stay inside. According to this little test, we can know that Yang represents a force of spreading and Yin represents a force of shrinking. They categorize the energies of the universe that we feel in these two ways. So be careful. Yin and Yang are not about the features of the definition of the energy. It is all about how we, as a human being, feel about the energy. Because the energy itself doesn't have a certain definition. It is what it is. So gradually, the sun represents Yang to us, and the moon represents Yin to us. The day represents Yang and the night represents Yin. They're energy that how we feel. So if we feel energetic and warm during the daytime because there's a sunlight make us warm, and we feel calm and cool down during the night. So this is actually very important for us. As a human being, we should be very productive and feel energetic during the day, and we should just calm ourselves down during the night. This is follow the rule of the nature. But nowadays our life is full of varieties. Some people would like to go out for party during the night for a whole night, and some people is working very late for a whole night. And all of them feel very drowsy during the next day. It might not impact on their health in the short terms, but definitely it is going to have some long-term consequences in their health condition. And unfortunately, I have some friend who's working very hard and stayed up late every day, and they feel very bad about themselves physically in this very young age. So Yin-Yang concept is very abstract. Please think thoroughly. In I Ching, we can see the sky is Yang and the earth is Yin. Why? Please remember, this is based on your experience, because for the human beings, the sky is active, it's changeable all the time. It has a huge influence on human beings' life, such as raining, such as thunder, such as windy, and so on. So the sky influenced our life, but while we can barely feel the change or the movement of the earth. We can plant some food on it, we can build a building on it, on the earth. We can influence on the earth. So the earth is more passive while the sky is more activity. So now we can see the power of activity is Yang and the power of passivity is Yin. I think before that I kind of mentioned about Fuxi looked down to ourselves and discovered the whole universe can be represented in our whole body system. So let's look at our body system this time. So you want to guess, look at our hand. We have two sides of the hand. Which side is Yin and which side is Yang? You want to guess? So the palm is Yang and the back of the palm is Yin. Do you guess it right? Why? Remember, the Yang energy is more active. So this palm, you can active. You can grab things, create things, move your finger. It's all this side is active. However, this side is more passive. It's a following, this side is a follow this side. You can't bring your finger like that, right? It is not active in that way. Let's look at our hands again. We can divide our hands in two sides, our thumb and other four fingers. So which one is Yang and which one is Yin? Okay, our thumb is yang and other 4 is yin. Why? It relates to the number in the I Ching because the odd number means yang and the even numbers means yin. It took me several days to figure out how to represent this idea because a lot of the scholars and the philosophers in China, they have their own ideas or they just talk to people. You remember this, so you don't really need to understand the mechanism behind why the odd number is yang and why the even number is yin. So I was thinking this way. Since the very first beginning of the first stroke of the 8 diagrams, remember we're talking about the first stroke as the stroke of everlasting. This is the stroke represents the power of initiating. This is the very first start point. It's creation and activity. Therefore, the first stroke represents yang energy because it's spreading, it's expanding the whole system of I Ching and it's initiating. However, the stroke is very vulnerable. It's fragile. It's very easy to break down. So that's why in I Ching they says Dao begets 1 and 1 begets 2. So the number 2 is actually passive because it follows the first stroke. So I Ching uses 2 elements, yin and yang, to describe everything in the universe. So if you want to understand the nature, you want to understand the universe, or you just want to understand yourself, you can start from understanding I Ching or the concept of yin and yang. So now we know what is yin and what is yang. Then what is the dynamic relationship between these two? In general, we describe yin and yang as 2 opposite energies, which is very true. But they are also changing, and the last but the most important part is they are also unitary and inseparable. People always forget about the last point. So now we just take yin and yang as 2 separate things, but no, they're not. They're unitary, they're inseparable. I think the reason behind this is because we're accepting the modern knowledge nowadays and we have been educated in this kind of separated way. We learn all the knowledge in a divided ways. For example, we learn biology, we learn psychology, we learn math, we learn literature. Everything is divided into categories. However, the nature is not working that way. For example, I used to study international relations, which is a subject that has been divided from the political science and the sociology. So the scholars, they can just create their own schools and have their own theories. However, the real study is not necessarily going that way because it is hard for the scholars to study the international relations purely based on the dynamic relations among the countries. We have to consider the domestic situation in a certain country or in a certain area. Therefore, any kind of research which barely based on the dynamic among nations are biased, just like our nature. How could you divide day and night? It looks like very simple. Yeah, day, during the day we have the sunlight, the sun is bright, we can see the sky, but during the night we got the moon, we got the sky is dark and we can see the stars. But is that simple? But no, because the changing of the day to the night is a progressive process. You can't tell it clearly. It is not like you switch on and off a light. You might observe that the day is getting dark gradually, but you're unable to observe this phenomenon like you switch on and off a light. It doesn't work in that way. You can't divide the day and the night that clearly. And sometimes today the day is getting brighter earlier, and some days it's just a little bit later. The changing of the nature doesn't have a clear line. So that is what I Ching is talking about, because everything in our universe is connected with each other. Everything is inseparable. So Fuxi observed yin and yang in our body system. So let's go back to our hand again. We discussed that the thumb represents yang and the other 4 fingers represents yin, because of the reason of the numbers. So let's move on that kind of concept. In our thumb, we have 2 knuckles. However, in the other fingers, we have 3 knuckles. So in the yang number, we have 2 knuckles as yin, and the other 4 thumb, we have 3 knuckles as yang, which means yin is in yang and yang is in yin. They are inseparable, see? How strange the evolution, isn't it? We just evolved in this way, so we can grab things. There are so many other things that we can discover in our hands, but I'm going to stop here because that would be too much information for us to learn. But just remember, yang is in yin and yin is in yang. They're unitary. So we can't say that yang and yin are two separate things. They're actually one thing. They're inseparable and cooperate with each other. And now let's look at our whole body system. In the Western knowledge, our body system are separated with each other. So we have a lot of specialists. For example, your brain specialists, your nerve specialists, your eye specialists. But for Chinese, especially for the traditional Chinese medicine, our whole body system are a whole. It's a system of yin and yang. It is also a concept that is actually come from I Ching. In our traditional medicine, we have a magic technology called acupuncture. A lot of Westerners think this is ridiculous and unbelievable. Why you need to use a needle to prick someone? Where this needle goes? It goes to the blood vessel, or it goes into the muscles, or it just goes into the flesh? It doesn't make any sense. No, we don't prick any of that. We prick one thing called meridian channels. And this is the system that you cannot approve through anatomy. So the Westerners, a lot of Westerners or some Western doctors, they just don't believe in it because you can't see it with your physical eyes. Well, meridian channels only exist when the people's still alive. So when we die, those channels are gone. It doesn't exist anymore. But we use this kind of a method to cure our body system for thousands of years, and it worked for us. So we can see that in our whole universe there are a lot of things that we can see through our physical eyes, but they also have a lot of things that we cannot see, but they also coexist with this reality. So the virtual world and the real world coexist together. The virtual is yin and the real world is yang. They're inseparable. So we should know that our human sense, such as seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, are very, very limited because they still have a lot of things that we cannot see, we cannot touch, we cannot hear, and we cannot test. Therefore, I Ching told us, as a human being, we need to be humble. Be humble in front of the infinite universe. Okay, so this is the episode of what is yin and what is yang. I hope you understand this concept. In the next episode, we're going to talk about what is Tai Chi. So stay tuned.